What is up, YouTube? And welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! House. Guys, today I'm updating branded post-Duelist Nexus. And Duelist Nexus brought Revolution Synchron. Every time there's really good synchro support, King Calamity makes his way back into the format and all these FTKs start coming out of the woodworks. So I'm gonna show you why exactly I chose my tech options and what has led me to a lot of success at my last couple of OTS visits. All right, guys, let's not waste too much time. Let's jump in. All right, guys, let's go ahead and start off with 3 copies of Fallen of Albaz, the bread and butter of this strategy. You still want to play 3. I think it's way too good in the grind game, especially against decks like Runic and Kashira that are banishing cards off the top of your deck. 3 copies of Aluber, the Jester of Despia, still the best normal summon in the deck. If you already have access to Branded Fusion, well, now you have easy access to cards like Branded Lost or even Branded in Red to play around things like Ash. 1 copy of Despia and Tragedy. I still think this card is mandatory. I have tried playing the build without Despia and Tragedy, but I always find myself really missing that graveyard effect to recycle cards like Branded Fusion. 1 copy of Guiding Quem the Virtuous. Again, another mandatory staple in the deck. I think the card is way too good. I think it's actually power crept ad libitum. It does what it does on a normal summon body, and it's a light monster, so just inherent synergy with the deck. Revives cards like Mirror Jade from the graveyard after you fusion summoned. It could even revive back Fallen of Albaz for the interruption play of, fusing off with your opponent's monsters. I think it's just way too good not to run. 2 copies of Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous. I have seen the light, guys. I was for a while playing 1. I just really didn't want to see too many cards that I could potentially normal summon, but I didn't really see that this card alone helps you play around Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. It helps you not lose to the things that Branded is most typically known for losing for. Once you get that Fallen of Albaz engraved, through cards like Guiding Quem, you can actually special summon this card out from hand, and even in late in the grind game, this card is always a free body. Huge fusion plays. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's literally poly on legs. It doesn't get much better than that. 1 copy of Springen's Kit. I have decided to play Springen's Kit because we're in a format where Droll Lockbird is running rampant. So you need cards that don't hard lose to Droll Lockbird. That's why I've decided to cut cards like Foolish and Goldsark because, like I said, they hard lose to Droll Lockbird. Springen's Kit, on the other hand, does not. It's just like a Aluber. You can normal summon it or even special summon it to grab that Branded Fusion from the deck. But it's really, really good when you're recycling things from the Banish Zone or even the graveyard. You can grab your Counter Trap after you've used both of its effects. It's just way too good. Springen's Kit provides so much grind game for the deck. 1 copy of Tribrigator Mercurier. Hand traps you can search for. Guys, I've gone over this over and over again. Hand traps you can search for are the best kind of hand traps. They're the most oppressive kind of hand traps. They're the hand traps you always have access to, right? You can search this during your turn to kind of make sure you push for that Gimmick Puppet Lock. I mean, it's just so good. It helps you play around Nibiru. The list goes on and on. Tribrigator Mercurier is an absolute staple. And the last bit of Albaz support that I'm playing in the deck is 1 copy of Albion the Shrouded Dragon. Not only is the draw effect super powerful, getting you into some of that non-engine that you're playing in the deck, but dumping Branded Opening is actually super, super clutch. A lot of people are starting to play cards like Dark Hole. You don't want to just get your whole field blown up. You want to be able to, of course, play the game. So Albion the Shrouded Dragon is one of the best cards in the strategy. Don't think that just because I put it last, that it's the worst. Now, guys, getting into some of those monsters that we can't search for, because everything you just saw there, you can almost always search for with your Branded engine, is 4 monsters here. 1 copy of Bestial Sereneer, 1 copy of the Bestial Lubellion, 1 copy of Dark Magician, and 1 copy of Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. Bestial Sereneer and Bestial Lubellion are kind of like a pair, right? You can't really play one without the other. I was trying for a long time to just play the Bestial Lubellion, but it ended up being a brick more often than not, and that access to Branded Lost I mean, to have a whole brick in the deck just to have extra access to Branded Lost just didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So I did decide to bring back Bishop Serenir, which has been a huge boost to the deck because this card plus Albion the Shrouded Dragon essentially searches you for any spell and trap you have in the deck, branded spell you have in the deck, just by dumping the branded trap and dumping whatever you need, right? Like branded fusion or even branded in red. Different little cheeky plays you can do. I think these cards in tandem are probably one of the best starters in the deck. Is absolutely insane. I would play more if I wasn't, you know, restrained to right now it's a 42 card build just because I really want to make sure I'm seeing some of my non-engine. And one copy of the Dark Magician, absolutely mandatory, guys. Being able to flex into a Dragoon after you got shifted or any sort of, you know, foolishness like that. You get Dueling Lockbird early. I'm not really sure what happens, right? You can always flex into a Dragoon. As long as you have at least 2 discards in hand, one for the Lubellian and one for the Dragoon, then Dragoon is almost always a viable play. I've actually started to notice that I'm making blind into my opponent when I don't know what they're playing. I try to make Dragoon over Mirrorjade just because it's a lot harder to deal with, right? That targeting protection, it can't be destroyed. Very, very good. Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. Oof, guys, it's just absolutely free. Main decking this means you almost always guarantee a win when you win the die roll. Or even if you don't win the die roll, there's been a lot of times where I'll break my opponent's board and then end up hitting them with the Gimmick Puppet on the crackback, which is just absolutely unfair. I don't think that this card necessarily will be on the ban list. I think it's Albion the Sanctifier Dragon, the actual fusion monster, because this can just be easily replaced with Edo, the Supreme Magical Force. It can be dumped the same exact way off Guignol and then revived back off Sanctifier. That is it for our beefy monsters. Now getting into those hand traps. 3 copies of Dueling Lockbird. Absolutely mandatory, guys. Every single OTS tournament I went to this weekend, I got FTK'd. Yes, you heard me right. Every single OTS tournament I went to this weekend, I got FTK'd. It's been an absolute ride with Assault Synchron. There are so many Synchro decks coming out of the woodworks. There was one guy on this crazy Isolde equipped, you know, Dark Warrior deck. Oh man, he FTK'd the crap out of me. And if I didn't open up Dueling Lockbird in game 2 and 3, I would have definitely lost that. 2 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Still one of the best hand traps in the game. I don't like playing 3 just because it is a hard once per turn, so opening multiples is never really good. Probably one of the most suboptimal things that can happen in the deck, especially because it's a fire. And just like Ghostbell and Haunted Mansion, she's an earth, they're a fire, so you can't even really use them for fusion plays. So opening multiples isn't ever really what you want to see. But what they provide in protection is just unmatched. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, so good in the mirror match and against Labyrinth, and Ghostbell and Haunted Mansion, again, very good in the mirror match, Labyrinth, and specifically the Runic strategy. The Runic strategy is probably one of the harder decks to deal with when you're playing branded. So Ghostbell and Haunted Mansion is a for sure main deck in my opinion, just because being able to deal with the Fountain Draw or even negating Donner, if you're playing a per hire build, it's just way too good. I really, really like this hand trap lineup, and you'll see later on why I decided on these ratios. 3 copies of Branded Fusion. Absolutely insane to me that this card is not anywhere on our TCG ban list. The OCG and Master Duel kind of got it right when they hit this card. It is obviously the problem of the deck, and this is what sets up a lot of the unfair things. But I will say that with it getting an ultimate rare in the newest OTS pack, it probably will be some time before this deck sees any hits on the ban list. It maybe, like I said earlier, Albion the Sanctifier, but other than that, I really can't think of anything. 3 copies of Branded Opening. This deck is adept at playing around draw. We can shotgun this in our draw phase. That way we're not having to play under draw, or not playing until under draw until later in the turn. It also grabs Quem, it grabs a Luber. Either way, just absolutely insane. one copy of Branded in red. This is still probably one of the best branded spell cards available to the deck. You can set it during the end phase, and because I play Spriggan's Kit, I don't have to play multiple. I don't have to worry about bricking on it. Very, very good. Even if you hard open this card, it does help play around Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring if you're able to get a Fallen of Albaz in the graveyard. Just absolutely ridiculous. I think this card is mandatory, still at 1. And speaking of mandatory, one copy of Branded Lost. I literally only play the Bistro package just so I can have access to this card, and shout out to Konami for that beautiful super rare coming out of the OTS pack. Very, very nice. Not only is it Magical Meltdown, where it protects a lot of your plays, it searches, and it can search for cards like Tri-Brigade Mercurier, which is a hand trap. Very, very good. I still think Branded Lost is absolutely mandatory. That is it for our specific branded spells. Now moving on to the more generic fusion, the generic spells that help this deck go far, right? Fusion Deployment, by far the best non-engine you can play in the deck. Fusion Deployment helps play around Ash Blossom. If you hard open Cartesia, then you can just bring out Albaz, then special the Cartesia from hand, and that way you're playing around Ash Blossom. Just so good. The lines of play it opens up. Even going second helps you break boards. Just so good. One copy of Triple Tactics Talent. You guys will see in the side deck why I've decided on just one. Spoiler alert, Thrust. And 3 copies of Crossout Designator, along with 1 copy of Called by the Grave. Guys, look at this. Beautiful. Ironically, Branded kind of performs better in a hand trap environment because of all the hand trap hate Konami has printed. Triple Tactics Talent being 3 cards that are on the ban list, well, with the exception now of Change of Heart, all wrapped up into 1 card. Absolutely crazy. Just being able to punish your opponent whenever they try to play on your turn. Called by the Grave, again, another one of those cards that is just absolutely unfair. There's a reason why this card's at 1. It's just super oppressive. Your opponent is really just trying to play the game, and you're just telling them no. That way you can essentially FTK them with the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. And of course, 3 copies of Crossout Designator is, in my opinion, absolutely mandatory in a hand trap format. You don't want to lose to things like Droll and Lockbird or Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. These cards are running rampant in the format. People are trying anything they can to stop these FTKs. So, of course, Crossout Designator in a hand trap heavy format, in my opinion, is absolutely a staple. Guys, that is it for the spells, the monsters. Now we just have 2 traps left. 1 copy of Infinite Impermanence and 1 copy of Branded Retribution. This is wrapping up a 42 card list. I actually decided this was probably card 42, and I'm super glad I did it. Very, very last minute, added it into the deck, and God knows how many times I was able to cross out Infinite Impermanence because it is just one of the more popular hand traps. I don't want to say that it's one of the better hand traps because I do think trading 1 for 1 in an FTK format, bro, you're going to lose, right? Some of these FTK strategies just bulldoze straight through a lot of these 1 interaction hand traps. You need really oppressive hand traps that tack on floodgates like Droll and Lockbird or even D-Shifter. But we kind of can't play Shifters, so I decided on playing Infinite Impermanence. I do think when I hard open it, it's pretty good. I can set it even if I go first. It's just, you know, the better option instead of playing just maybe 1 copy of Shifter. Thought that was kind of silly, especially if I hard open it. Then what? I use it for fusion material? Yeah, right. So Infinite Impermanence, definitely the pick, and I'll be going forward, maybe even bumping this up to 2, no more than that. And of course, Branded Retribution. Branded Retribution is the sickest, absolutely wicked branded card. I mean, being able to set this during the end phase, and I know a lot of people don't actually like doing that, but I set it during the end phase to help protect that Gimmick Puppet lock, being able to negate a Bestial in hand, and then kind of closing off the chain. Red Reaper's not a thing anymore, so they're not really going to be able to respond to this. It's super oppressive, shuffles in cards from the graveyard, so it does help with the grind game. And not only that, recycles back from grave to hand. Cards like Branded Fusion can't be done on the same turn, but it doesn't really matter. You're not really going to need it on the same turn. So very, very good. Branded Retribution is still a staple. Like I said, guys, a 42 card deck. I couldn't bring myself to play any more than that. And I'm kind of glad I didn't. I had some really nice success over the past weekend, going to 3 locals, only dropping 2 games entire weekend. So very, very fun. 1 copy of Rinbrum, the Striking Dragon. I don't know what I was thinking when I ended up cutting this card. If you guys watched the last build, I actually didn't play this card. And I'm absolutely foolish for it. I think that its effect on field is very, very good. It deals with Kashtira very well. Not only that, sending it to grave off Mirror Jade, and then using its effect in graveyard to special an Albaz on your opponent's turn. So good. Opens up a lot of fusion plays. Speaking of those fusion plays, Sprin the Iron Dash Dragon. This fusion material is 1 effect monster special summon this turn. Yeah, insane. So you can almost always, if your opponent is essentially playing the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, you can get into Sprin the Iron Dash Dragon with a Fallen of Albaz play. Titaniclad the Ash Dragon. Probably one of the monsters I summoned the least. I'm actually more than likely dumping this directly from extra deck to grave to special summon things like Quem during the end phase because she's always treated as a Dogmatica monster. But I will say that its effect on field is killer. I mean, there are so many decks right now that are just turboing out these huge Zeus plays, right? And if you just go Branded Fusion for Titaniclad, well, they can't really answer the Titaniclad because it's unaffected by monsters special summoned from the extra deck for the rest of the turn that it's fusion summoned. So, very, very good card. 1 copy of Lubellion the Searing Dragon. Oof, I mean, I would want to play 2. I just can't bring myself to do so because the extra deck is so tight. And if you really manage your resources well, then you really don't find yourself even needing the second Lubellion. That is definitely not the case for Albion the Branded Dragon. I would play 3 if I could, but 2 is fine. Like I said, you gotta really manage your resources when you're playing Despia, especially that extra deck. Once you start whittling down those resources, it gets really hard to play late in the game. This card sets cards like Branded Retribution or Branded in red during the end phase, and you still want to have 1 in the extra deck to actually fusion summon into. And, you know, with it being a light monster, means that you have access essentially to Foolish Burial any light monster from the deck. That'll probably be more relevant if Gimmick Puppet Nightmare gets hit, and we'll have to start playing Ito the Supreme Magical Force. 1 copy of Albion the Sanctifier Dragon. I know this is gonna sound mad controversial, guys, but this is by far the best Fallen of Albaz fusion monster. I don't know what they were thinking when they printed this card. Just the fact that it helps you pull off things like the Gimmick Puppet Lock, but on top of that, it has targeting protection, so you can't even imperm. Very, very good. I think that if any card gets hit on the ban list for this deck, it's not Branded Fusion, it's not cards like Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, I think it's Albion the Sanctifier Dragon. Just opens up so many unfair lines of play. Then 2 copies of Mirror Jade the Iceblade Dragon. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't find myself kind of blind making this card if I don't know what my opponent is playing. Games 2 and 3, obviously, once I have more information, then Mirror Jade becomes a lot more effective, but blind making it going first when you don't have access to the Gimmick Puppet Lock, well, that's really, really risky just because Mirror Jade's effect doesn't blow up once it gets sent to grave, it blows up during the end phase. So your opponent still has the opportunity to OTK you. Very, very iffy. But I will say that Mirror Jade the Iceblade Dragon complemented with other fusion monsters on the field, absolutely ridiculous. So good. It makes your opponent, it puts so much pressure on your opponent because it's very hard to actually break your board with the fear of Mirror Jade just blowing everything up during the end phase and setting up an OTK for me, right? So that is about it for the Fallen of Albaz fusions. All very, very good. 1 copy of Granguignol, the Dusk Dragon, 1 copy of Despia and Queritus, and 1 copy of Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. Granguignol the Dusk Dragon. If Albion the Sanctifier Dragon is probably on the chopping block, Granguignol is up there with it, in my opinion. Having access to every single light and dark monster in the game, essentially. If they're level 6 or above, you can just foolish it from deck or extra deck. Very, very good. Don't know what Konami was thinking when they made this card, but here we are. Gimmick Puppet locking the crap out of everybody. Despia and Queritus, which I think, in my opinion, is absolutely mandatory. I do see a lot of people cut this card. Even players in the OCG have decided to cut this card. But in my opinion, having such a hard counter to Barone, it's just ridiculous. This always threatens a fusion play with Fallen of Albaz, or at least access to Branded Fusion, because it can bring a Luber directly from the deck, then getting a search effect off. It's just so good. Not only that, any deck that's not a fusion deck has kind of a hard time dealing with this card, because if they can't really battle over it, it'll always turn everyone's attack to 0. And last and certainly not least, for that Despia package, I run 1 copy of Masquerade. Kind of colloquially known as the Tax Dragon. I don't really like to use the T word, just because I know a lot of people have gotten in trouble, you know, for saying things like this is a win con in the T word. Gotta be real selective with my words. But I do want everyone to know that that's not why I'm playing the card. I actually play this for matchups like Floowandereeze and Runic that just have a hard time dealing with this card before they've burned themselves just way too much. Guys, if your opponent is doing something that you know they probably shouldn't be doing, talk to the judges. The judges are 100% going to hear you out. That's the best thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is I love the judging staff. Top to bottom, OTS, all the way up to tier 3 events. I've been to it all. Absolutely love the judging staff. Konami does such a good job of training them, and they'll be able to see that someone is, in fact, trying to play into the T word. So definitely make sure you have that line of communication with your judges. I think it's so important. 1 copy of Dragostapelia, 1 copy of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, and 1 copy of Guardian Chimera. Wrapping up the more generic side of our fusion monsters, Dragostapelia is just absolutely absurd. The fusion plays it opens up when you use Mirror Jade as fusion material. You can revive it back with Quem. You know, the kind of stuff we used to do with Ad Libitum. So I think it's just way too good. I think it's really good specifically in matchups that are reliant on their normal summon. The Vanadium build is actually quite susceptible to this on-field negate. Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of like the boss monster that I'll make blind into boards, just because a lot of people don't have main deck answers to this. A lot of the counters to the A Pearly Noir also counter Dragoon, but those things are in the side deck. So making this in game 1 is, in my opinion, always the way to go. And then of course, I mean, it's not a branded deck without Guardian Chimera. I think this is one of the absolute best generic fusion monsters ever printed. It's absolutely insane the kind of things it opens up on your opponent's turn. Not only can you pop, but you guys saw earlier, I do play hand traps. So drawing into hand traps off Guardian Chimera after you get that pop, guys, it's just so unfair. So good. I do think that for years to come, no matter how power crept this deck gets, Guardian Chimera will probably always be a staple. So good. You guys have seen that there are people playing like Chimera builds of branded. Just absolutely insane. I think this card is so good. All right, that is a 15 card extra deck, a 42 card main deck. Now let's get into that side deck. I did spoil a bit of it earlier when I was talking about it, but let's push through it. 2 copies of Bestial Magnemite. I'm not really sure how I feel about this. There hasn't been too many decks where I side this in and it's just a blowout card, right? Like, it's not like Mathmech is running around like crazy. It's not like Tearlaments is running around like crazy. But I do think a small package of 2 Magnemite with the 1 Druid Worm is just way too good in the branded strategy. We have extra access to it because we play things like Lubellion. It combos off so well because it searches things like Fallen of Albaz. It searches things like Albion. It's not one-dimensional in this deck. Probably not as good as it is in Dragon Link, but still very good to the strategy. And of course, Druid Worm, that graveyard effect, once it gets sent to graveyard, just so good. Being able to just send anything, you know, deals with Dragoon, deals with Zeus, deals with Barone if they don't negate it. So very good. I decided to play 2 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust. Now I know what you're thinking. Why not 3? I don't know if it's just my luck, but I keep drawing 2. So it's not the same format we were before. In the last format, before Duelist Nexus, I think this was a absolute main deck staple. Playing it at 3 with the fusion duplication, I think that was a brilliant tech. Shout out to the North American players who were on that way before everybody else. So good. But in my opinion, when it comes to the side deck, I didn't want to oversaturate it. So I just played 2 copies of Thrust and some of the cards that I'm playing to complement Thrust. 1 copy of Herald of the Abyss. If you don't know what this card does, it says pay 1,500 life points and declare 1 monster type and 1 attribute. Your opponent must send 1 face-up, and that says your opponent must send 1 face-up monster with the declared type and attribute from their field to the graveyard. Second effect is also good. It says, for the rest of this turn, if possible for the rest of this turn, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with that sent monster's name. So even if your opponent puts up 2 Noirs, they're not gonna be able to use the effects of the second one on field. So very good. Yeah, guys, this is definitely a hard counter to Pearly, a hard counter to Kashtira Riseheart. I think it is just way too good. I mean, you could play Xyz Encore. I think that is, in theory, better than, of course, Herald of the Abyss, Xyz Encore, but it's just not searchable with Thrust. Having access to it with Thrust is what, in my opinion, makes Herald of the Abyss so good in the strategy. Then 1 copy of Dark Hole. Again, we're kind of complementing that Thrust. Dark Hole helps out stupid things like the Ebly Lock and just absolutely bulldozes through Kashtira. Very good. 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. I think as long as this card is legal, it's mandatory. Whether it's in your main deck or your side deck, Harpy's Feather Duster kind of doesn't ever leave the format. 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. Guys, this card is main deck worthy. I'm so tempted. A lot of the guys here at the house have been telling me I need to start main decking this. A lot of people at the Remote Duel Extravaganza were actually main decking this. Being able to deal with cards like My Friend Pearly, deal with any sort of field spells that every single deck is playing now, it's just way too good. Cosmic Cyclone is an absolute staple in your side deck and is, in my opinion, kind of worthy of starting to consider to main deck it. That is it for the spells and the monsters of my side deck. Now getting into the last bit of it, and I'll keep out these Thrusts here because these cards kind of don't make sense without it, right? 2 copies of Thrust, 2 copies of Evenly Matched. With 2 copies of Thrust, that's essentially playing 4 copies of Evenly Matched without having to commit to the third one. So good. 2 copies of Eradicator Epidemic Virus. This card has kind of been up in the air, right? A lot of people are saying, oh, it needs to get banned, but I mean, guys, how many times have you eradicated somebody for 5? It doesn't happen often, right? Like that, it didn't happen not once this weekend. I called every time I actually was able to resolve Eradicator, I wasn't even able to rip a single card out of my opponent's hand. So, of course, like most things Yu-Gi-Oh related, it is RNG based. You're not always gonna get its super powerful, oh my god, I just ripped 5 cards in my opponent's hand and I just won the game. You're not always gonna be able to do that. But I will say that, of course, against strategies like Sky Striker or even Labyrinth, where you can just call, what, 80% of their deck? Yeah, it does get a bit unfair. And it's probably time to see this card hit the ban list. Curious kind of had to pay for the sins of Eradicator, but I think that it's been long enough. Eradicator Epidemic Virus might see some time on the ban list. And speaking of the ban list, 1 copy of Dimensional Barrier. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for this card to get banned. I only play 1, not even to set it off Thrust. I actually have it in here for the crossout target. The amount of times I've been able to cross out Dimensional Barrier, guys, that feels like God himself is pushing you forward to victory. Oh my god, there's nothing more satisfying than crossing out the D barrier. So good. It just, God, automatically wins you the game. It's so powerful. I actually have not resolved this card. I have not set it off Thrust. I don't side it in going first, anything like that. Genuinely, this is only for a going second for the crossout package. So guys, that's it for the side deck. I'll lay it all out here together because I feel like just seeing it all together would be a bit easier. Yeah, like I said earlier, 2 copies of Druid Swarm, 2 copies of Magnum, the 1 Druid Swarm, the 2 Thrust, the Herald of the Abyss, the Dark Hole, the Harpies, the 2 Cosmic, just kind of go with that. 2 Evenly. You know, this is standard, right? This right here, you need back row removal. You can't complain about back row decks being so good and then not play any back row removal, right? 2 copies of Eradicator, and then the 1 copy of D-Barrier. This is it all together, guys. This is my side deck. This is what I've decided to go with. This is probably the most important part of the deck, right? Most of your games are played in the side deck. 67% of your games specifically are played in the side deck. So more often than not, your main deck, of course, while being incredibly important, it's not as important as the side deck. There's a lot of theory that goes behind every single card here. Thank you guys so much for checking back in with Yu-Gi-Oh! House and for sitting here and let me rant to you guys. And I really, really hope you guys don't get FTK'd at your next locals. Guys, peace.